start with the questions. I did want to put before the panel so you all can think about it. Since we're talking about annexation and incorporation, I would like for you all, I would like for you all to speak to the long-term and near-term impact of annexing into an existing city or incorporating a new city and its effect on the unincorporated citizens, the county, and adjacent cities. So just to keep that in consideration as you answer this question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let me clear up one thing before we get started though. And she was correct that this is supposed to be local bills. And you can call an elephant a boat, it's still an elephant. It was supposed to be local bills, they are local bills. They treated them as local bills in the Senate, but they did not treat them as local bills in the House. And the problem with it, or the reason for it, was because of Sandy Springs. You know, just so that you have a good understanding of what this is. Sandy Springs, for 30 years, tried to become a city. And all of us, including myself, we fought against that. And we fought against it because at that time, the county was predominantly unincorporated. And the resources of the county were being shared across the entire county. So we wanted to keep it that way. But when the Democrats lost the governor's office, and some of the other Democrats, if you want to call that, switched parties. And when they switched parties, they gave them a majority in the General Assembly. But it did not give them a majority in the local delegation. So they still couldn't get Sandy Springs passed through the process that is being discussed here. So they just ignored the local delegation and changed the rules and said we're going to call it a general bill and have everybody vote on it. And that's how we got there. I think you just needed to know that so that you understand what's going on. It is a local bill. They just don't treat it like a local bill. That's it. So.
Marvin. Is the mic okay? Oh, okay. Good morning and thank you for coming. Everything that has been said this morning so far makes good sense. As someone said, it's a rule, it's a rule, it's a rule. But it's only a rule, as Roger said, if you treat it as a rule. South Fulton is not being treated as a rule because of politics. My question to anyone at the table that can answer it or speak to it is the process of neighborhoods being annexed, the 60% rule, how long is that process valid? And the reason I ask that, because if it's supposed to be done within certain time frames, I can understand that. If citizens in a subdivision get a petition and everybody has to agree one way or the other by December 2016, then fine, if that's the rule. The city of Atlanta and those in unincorporated South Fulton have been signing petitions for 5 years. When does it stop? Or is that process continuing and continuing and continuing? And when do you determine that the 60% mark has been met, or can you keep on adding to it? Because we still have folk that have agreed to be annexed into the city, and I don't know whether those signatures are valid or not. So, I mean, it's really kind of a hairy situation because there's no beginning and no end to the whole business of both being annexed. Thank you. Sorry it took so long.
I know the answer. Here's what reality is. The process that was described earlier for annexation continues. It continues. However, with the passage of this legislation, July 1st, it will stop until after the referendum. If you vote yes to create your city, then you move forward. If you vote no to create your city, then the annexations are going to pick back up again. But it will stop on July 1st. Now, it's my understanding, if anybody up there has different information, correct me, is that the signatures are only good for 1 year. And if the signatures, if you don't have enough to do your annexation, then you basically start over again. And that's, to some degree, what's happening. But here's what I've observed. You have to have 60% of an area to move forward. 60% of the registered voters and 60% of the landowners. And what has been happening is that they've drawn circles. Let's just draw a circle. And if they don't get 60% of that circle, and they've only got 30%, then they take the 30% and draw a new circle. And they keep going and keep going and keep going until they have 60% of a circle, whatever that circle is. That's what's been going on. And that's why you've seen, bits and pieces go as opposed to a whole community. You have some communities where just part of the community went because that's where the circle kept getting drawn. So, but it will stop on the 1st of July until after the referendum.
Yeah, Roger is absolutely correct. The statute is OCGA 36-36-32, and it specifically states that all signatures must be collected within 1 year from the first signature collected. So that is what it must be done within 1 year from the first signature collected. So, but therein belies one of the problems because these applications are being submitted directly to the cities, and the county has no role for oversight or review or validation or confirmation of any of that. And so I think that is one of the inherent problems. And one of the reason that we named this summit what we named it was because both the House and the Senate had study committees called Annexation, Deannexation, and Incorporation. And so this was one of the items that I actually mentioned when I went to the committee, that, and then also the issue with our schools, right? Because, one of the big issues, and I'm not sure if you're aware, Dr. Wheeler and Todd, one of the big issues for us is there's a pending annexation request before the city of Atlanta that includes local elementary school and local middle school. And I know, Todd, that there was discussion about maybe exempting government property or something from those, at least during the House committee, but I don't know that any of that language actually made it to a bill and actually came out. So I don't know that those schools are still protected. And so to some extent, I think the only possibility, if in the unfortunate case that annexation goes through, the only thing we would be left with is looking to the school board and APS to work out some type of IGA, because otherwise I don't believe Fulton County schools would be allowed to operate the schools. And the law is so tricky, the way it's actually worded, only the city of Atlanta would have the right to purchase the land, not even APS, because at the time the law was written, the city of Atlanta and APS were one entity. So I think the annexation law certainly needs some updating.
A couple of things to touch on here real quick. First, unfortunately, none of the issues that were discussed during the study committees passed in legislation this year. We had a bill that made it through the Senate. It got over to the House, and the chairman of the House Governmental Affairs Committee unilaterally halted that bill and said there will be no changes in annexation law. One individual over one committee had that authority. We will continue to keep working. I will say to y'all's credit, and for better or worse, y'all are ground zero for all of these battles in the state of Georgia. Annexation, new city incorporation and de-annexation. And to be honest with you, I don't represent the schools, I represent county government. But both of y'all, Mr. Bruce, Commissioner, brought very compelling arguments to the General Assembly on the impact on schools. That, quite frankly, had not entered the significant debate at the General Assembly I've been there 12 years, as long as I can remember, but that was very good arguments, very valid concerns, because you have an independent school district here. And I've never seen that come into play, but I do think it's a compelling issue that needs to be addressed through legislation, but unfortunately, y'all are having to deal with it all here in South Fulton and in Fulton County overall for the past decade or so. And we keep trying to change the law. The Municipal Association is very well represented at the General Assembly. They have lobbyists just like I am, and they're good. And when they have one commissioner or one committee in the House, they can make a considerable difference in thwarting any such efforts. But I do want to commend y'all and the issues you've raised. I think you had the study committee sold, just whether or not there was enough support to get legislation passed. But that was a great question. I'm glad, Representative, you were able to answer that, because I wasn't quite sure of the 60%. Usually we're dealing, the vast majority of annexations are the 100% of undeveloped land, but the 60%, it's coming into play here, and I don't get to deal with that too often.
Good morning, panel. Thank you for coming out and speaking with us today. As it relates to the issue of islands, I've been led to believe that the municipalities are allowed to negotiate land swaps when these islands pop up. One, is that in fact the case? And two, when these negotiations reach an impasse, who becomes the mediator to decide what is fair?
I don't know. You want me to give a shot? Cities are free to negotiate anything they would like. Ultimately, the city has unilateral authority over the land which is going to be de-annexed from the incorporation, or the city, or they also have the ability to annex without the property owner's permission in current islands.
Okay. Well, put it this way, you've seen the South Fulton map. You know the property along South Fulton Park. Yeah, that one. There are obviously going to be some islands we are service delivery islands, because they still connect by that 50-foot strip. We're lines.
That's what some call the natural growth of the city, sir.
Okay, very good. And again, I've been led to believe that if the new city and the existing city negotiate something that's satisfactory to both, that will satisfy the General Assembly, lines can be redrawn, and both cities can march forward. But the question becomes, if they are not able to satisfactorily come up with a solution, who would be the referee to say, this is fair or this is not fair?
The General Assembly.
Yeah, I'll let the representative answer the General Assembly's part.
It would be the General Assembly.
Okay.
And probably once the city, this is the speculation, once the city is established, I got a feeling that we won't have to deal with all of the issues around local legislation versus general legislation, because it won't be that big of an issue anymore. And the local delegation will be able to probably fix that rapidly.
Yeah, and I would say, again, if the cities agree, you don't need the General Assembly's permission to annex and de-annex via the 100% method. But if they've got an existing city has a profitable piece of land that's getting a lot of revenue for it, it's not in their best interest to give it up. So it could be contentious in that case. The General Assembly can do through local legislation whatever it wants.
But I'm thinking if it's all undeveloped land, you know.
But the answer to your question is the General Assembly.
Good morning. My question also deals with islands. Commissioner, it is my understanding that the senior staff of planning specifically said that it would have been against policy for any annexation to occur that caused an island, i.e. that it would be illegal for islands to be there. I looked at some larger maps from the county, and they had said, good, show me where this is. Their contention was, if that was the case, they would push to null and void the annexation if a island was created. And my point is, I need some understanding of that, I think, from you and, my Commissioner Darnell. What is the policy with that? It was my understanding that it was totally illegal to establish an island per county policy. And a lot of people are talking about this islands all over here. I would like to see where they are so that you all can pursue that with the county.
Thank you so much for the question. Before I answer, I definitely want to acknowledge Commissioner Darnell in the back who came in, as well as our council member Joe Carr from the city of College Park. The answer to your question is islands are prohibited, but not by county law, by state law. OCGA 36-36-4 bars the formation of islands by annexation or de-annexation. And so the problem is there's no one been at the wheel looking, right? There's no one supervising or making sure or seeing what happens once these annexations are done. There's no oversight of that. And so there is a gap there. But I guess the only thing I would say to you is that I think that, we have to address it more from the state level, necessarily from the county level, and or just as individual residents. So there could be the possibility of trying to perhaps get some areas de-annexed if they created islands, because as Roger Bruce just said to me a second ago, the islands are already there. I mean, they're already islands. You look at those maps, at least they look like islands to me. I think you're right, but to some extent, the other thing is, right now, I think it's more important for us to be fighting for cityhood and picking our battles. Like, I'd rather fight for cityhood first, and then after we get cityhood, we may want to talk about what Mr. Reed was just talking about, negotiating some of those to make sure there's service delivery, there's continuity for service delivery, because frankly, Roger didn't do too good at drawing that map. He did a great job of trying to do the videos. But it's all unincorporated areas. It's all unincorporated areas. But as far as service delivery, technically it may be difficult to get some of that done. I'm sure the county in the first couple of years would be willing to, help with that transition, and it should just be a matter of negotiating a deal or IGA with whatever city officials elected if we get out and get enough people to vote for the city.
And just to be clear, I did not draw the map. The map was drawn by the fact that everybody was picking off pieces and we got what was left. That's how the map got formed. The legislation just says that all areas that are not already in the city as of July 1st would be considered for the new city. That's how the map got drawn.
And I would echo the Commissioner's comments, is your county's hands are tied. They have absolutely no say-so on these annexations, provided they meet the other requisite requirements in state statute. There are probably were existing islands, I don't have the dates on all this, of which can't do much about. There are loopholes by which islands are created, but at the end of the day, so long as the city, the annexing city, meets all state statutes, the county doesn't have much say-so in it. Now, there isn't, they can dispute it. But at the end of that, the only grounds they can legally dispute an annexation are on land use changes, density, that type of thing. But at the end of the year, 1 year's time, doesn't matter. The city's free to do what it wants anyhow. I mean, so it's once statutory requirements are met, your county can't really do much about it.
I totally understand that, and I'm pro-city too, but it's like right is right and wrong is wrong, and I would encourage every state representative to pursue supporting state law. If it was illegally by state to create an island, every legislator, particularly in this district and in my area, should be hell bent on making sure right is done. And I can look at all of them and say something.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Sir, my name is Marvin. I'm resident of Incorporation South Florida. Now, hearing the questions, I believe my question has been answered. I'm just concerned if is island the same as land and landlocked? And if it is it possible to de-annex? Or how do we handle something like that? I'm just concerned that we might be losing some land to cherry pick by the time we become a city, which we will, if we will have the opportunity to reclaim some of that land, if that's an option. Thank you.
If you have any, Dr. Wheeler.
There is no de-annexation without the existing city's consent. We call it the unilateral authority. Now, an existing city, parts of it, they can go to the county. The current law is petition to be de-annexed. The county approves, but it's ultimately up to that city council, of which the island. Often you'll hear the arguments that annexation is a property right, that annexation should happen in Georgia without the consent of the county, and that is indeed the case. However, no such property right exists, even if the property owner wishes to de-annex without the city's permission to do so. So if you can negotiate it with an existing city, that's one thing. If not, they will remain in the city.
If under current law, and the operative word is current, that's what he said is accurate. But there is efforts in the General Assembly to revamp all of the laws as it relates to annexation, de-annexation, and everything else. We will have a new General Assembly when we meet in January. There's a lot of people that are not going to be there next year that were there in these past years. How that reflects or how that changes the attitudes and the thoughts, who the chairman of the committees are and all sorts of stuff, we don't know that yet. The current chairman of the committee that deals with this doesn't want to make any changes. So we have to start talking to people above his pay grade and try to get some laws in place that make sense to everybody. Because if you go shopping at a store and you don't like the service that you get, you can go shop somewhere else. And that should be the same case here. You know, if you are annexed into a city and that city is not delivering the services that you expected, you should be able to go and shop elsewhere. And that will be part of the legislation that I and others will be looking at when we get back in January.
Excellent points. You made some excellent points.
So for de-annexation, just to specifically answer the question, OCGA 363622 treats de-annexation just like annexation, and it grants authority for municipalities to de-annex property when 100% of landowners sign a written application requesting de-annexation. The code section further requires identification of the property to be de-annexed, be filed with the county and the Department of Community Affairs. So, you know, a lot of this stuff, people, is in the code section. And so OCGA, OCGA is official code of Georgia annotated. And then the section is Title 36, Title 36, Chapter 36, and in particular in this case, Section 20 for de-annexation. I think this lady was next, and then we'll come to you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Deannexation. I'm a resident of homeowner here in South Florida. Okay, I wasn't on, sorry. Good morning. I appreciate you all being here this morning. My name is Sonia Patterson. I am a homeowner and resident here in the city of South Florida. I stand here to represent the interest of the parents who have students that attend the schools here. Okay, my children have been in the school system since kindergarten. I actually moved here before they even built all that, Camp Creek and all that. There was still a lot of horse pastures back then. but I'm still a displant. I'm here from New York, and I wanted to make my home here. I have been very concerned about how I'll say this county has handled the education, okay, and the lack of priority to its students. For example, when my children moved here, I reside in Walden Park subdivision, and we were redistricted, and Ms. Bryant, she knows, I've written many letters about this when I was frustrated when they were in elementary school, that in elementary school they were proposed to move to 3 schools, Stonewall Town, Renaissance, and then Cliftondale. And I put a halt to that for my children because I said, I'm going to ask that they not be moved again because it's not in their best interest. I understand your interest, but it's not in theirs. Then they went to Sandtown Middle School, which was the feeder school into Westlake. They attend Westlake, okay? These girls, as well as many other students at Westlake, I know Commissioner Arrington, your daughter is a colleague of my children. They're doing so well here at Westlake. Westlake is a phenomenon in South Fulton right now, in Fulton County in general. It is a strong performing school. This school is putting out wonderful athletes. They're pushing out wonderful artists. We got a student that was recently accepted to Juilliard. And when I was here less than 1 month ago for the honors ceremony, this stage is full with more than 300 students who are academically killing the game right now, okay? My concern is, and my question is to you, because when I walked in, I apologize for being late, but this gentleman at the end was speaking and said something to the effect of, when these discussions were being made or had, the matters that were, or the concerns about the schools were not really, I guess, the main point of discussion. But it has to be, because these children, under this annexation to the city of Atlanta goes through, my understanding is, through these loopholes in the verbiage of the laws, that these children will then be absorbed into the APS school system, and that cannot happen. If that school system was a strong school system, that school system was not at the risk of being overtaken, and that school system was the top school system in the state, hey, let's go for it. But we cannot have that happen. These students are working very, very hard. We have students in a program for the IB program where they're working very hard. I'm going to wrap it up. And they are working really, really hard to graduate and get into these competitive colleges. So my question is, how do we as South Fulton residents ensure that this concern, as well as all the others that my co-residents share, they are brought to the forefront, because this is very important to the future of our children. Thank you.
So he was responding to something that I said. We brought up that very issue at the Senate and House Study Committees on Deannexation. And I think what Todd was saying was that previously those issues about the schools had not been brought up before. And so he was glad that we actually brought them up, Bruce and I and others brought them up this time, because they're so timely, especially for those that are affected by it, right? But so I think really, frankly, we have 2 options. One, we got to fight the annexation of the area that includes those schools. We have to try to fight it and stop it. We have to write to the city council, because the city council will basically ultimately have to approve it, okay? Now, to some extent, I don't know, to the extent that we don't live in the city of Atlanta, then us writing to them may not necessarily affect them, because we don't vote them in or vote them out. But certainly, either way, I think we have to let our voices be heard and let them know that we don't want those schools taken. Second option is, in the unfortunate case that the annexation goes through, then we got to lean on the APS school board and Linda Bryan and the Fulton County School Board to enter into an intergovernmental agreement that will still allow Fulton County to operate these schools in the same fashion that they're operating now, but under some type of agreement with APS. Now that gets a little tricky, because then you got Fulton County tax dollars and APS tax dollars, and who council is and what council that. So it gets a little tricky, but first step is we got to try to fight it to prevent it from happening. And then if it does happen, then we're going to have to lean on my school board members to try to get an agreement done.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm not sure at what point you did come in. I was commending Representative Bruce and the others for making this a part of the discussion. And folks are paying attention up at the General Assembly. That got more traction than almost any of the other issues surrounding. I mean, there's always controversies on any city creation annexation. Not always, but there are many that are addressed at the General Assembly. But until they brought it up, I had not heard it in many years, and they made a big difference and got a lot of people thinking up there. So they're representing you well with these concerns at the General Assembly. I did want to state that clearly for the record.
Yes, sir.
If I may, if you all would keep your questions to about 30 seconds.
20 minutes.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, tangential to what the lady was saying. I live in the area near the Cascade Corridor that still remains part of Fulton County right now. And I know that we lost 5 major subdivisions the last time this issue came up in terms of the incorporation of the city. And that's because those people were afraid of being a part of some untested entity. So we lost some major subdivisions, which changed the character of every school that she's talking about. Every single one of those schools lost a lot of good students, potential good students, from upscale communities. And now we have a situation where we have other subdivisions in that same area right now that, who are a little bit intimidated by the thought of being associated with the horse pastures and other, goat farms and things which exist further south from here. Now, we have a situation where in Fulton County, now I look at this and I see, something which was coughed up, in terms of vomit, in terms of this pattern of what the city would look like. I don't see it as being a serviceable entity in this form, and I have presently not signed a petition, but this kind of thing intimidates me as a homeowner, who lives within that area, who would be considering the possibility, because I know, I drive out that area sometimes and I see cows and I see chickens and I see things like this. When I go out this, Hamilton Fair out that way, I see large property, I see lots of dirt roads, I see things like that, and it's a little bit intimidating when I look at this map. That I would be a part of this entity.
So I think, to address your concern, I think, I was picking on Representative Bruce a minute ago about his drawing skills for that map. I don't think it is the best drawn map, but it is basically a function, as Representative Bruce said, of the area that was left of the unincorporated area.
This is stuff alone, if the county South Fulton is already servicing itself.
Thank you.
That it is budgetarily sufficient right now.
Yeah, but let me tell you what we have going on. Right now, we have the Fulton County Commission making decisions, right? They just voted to put a group home across from Welcome Park. We should not have people from Johns Creek and Alpharetta voting to put a group home across. We need to be able to have people that live in this community make those decisions. Now, there's nothing wrong with those people from Johns Creek and Alpharetta, but they have cities up there, so they're able to they have representatives that can make those decisions for them. And I, for one, believe we need to have the same. And the young lady just told us about the 300 students that they had on the stage. I know that we have the talent here in South Fulton to run the city just as good as anywhere else. If they can run one in Johns Creek, we can run one.
In order to pay.
That's not true. It's not true. But before you leave, sir, you made the best case for why we should have a city while you stand out. You may not realize it, but you made the best case for why we should have a city. And that's because if we don't have a city, they will continue to pick apart all of that area that you're talking about. And it will become even a crazier looking map. Let me finish. It will become a crazier looking map, and you won't be able to afford it. And here's why you won't. I don't know how many people live in your house, but if you have 5 people that live in your house, and your mortgage is $2,000 a month, and all 5 of you are paying that $2,000, 3 of you move out, your mortgage is going to be $2,000, and now it's only 2 people left to pay it. And eventually it will get to a point where you will not be able to afford to be in unincorporated South Fulton County. We have to lock our city boundaries down so that they cannot continue to do what you're concerned about.
So let's move to the next person. Sir, if you have another question, you're more than welcome to stand back in line. I just want to make sure you be good stewards and move forward.
I'm a resident of Southwood. My question is relative to House Bill 514, which basically says that the boundaries for the proposed city of Southwood are locked as of July 1st, 2016. Does that mean that the petitions that are currently still pending, and there are 2, they're dead if they're not validated by that day?
That is correct.
Okay.
It is locked on July 1. Actually, it's at midnight on June 30th.
So to speak to that and just to share, I work with Protecting Our Communities and Schools, which is a coalition that was formed in April of 2015 to really keep parents informed about the impact, and everything that we looked at has said that the most viable way to protect our schools is for cityhood to be supported.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Let's take Ms. Naima and then go into finance and SSD.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you also for coming. I have more comments than questions, so please give me an opportunity to make these comments. I moved from the city of Atlanta in 2013 to unincorporated South Fulton. I moved to retire, and I realized that sections are a little bit cities, and then there's country, and there's something for everyone. That's really what I love about it. And so, if I wanted to stay in the city of Atlanta, I would never have moved. If I wanted to be annexed into Union City, Fairburn, Palmetto, or wherever, I would have moved there. So I have a constitutional right to determine where I want to live. I do not want to be annexed anywhere. I want to be in the city of South Fulton. I know it will be viable, and I agree it just hurts because I live in an island. We're boxed in, and it's just so ridiculous that there's a law that says you can't do it. It's been done. Nobody's doing anything about it. And in addition to that, I realized also that now, after coming after the citizens and the schools, well now, let's take your commercial part, okay? And so that's what's on the table. And all of it is frightening to those of us who are sitting back, really feeling helpless, that we don't have any control over our destiny because this big entity called the city of Atlanta has all of the resources to just squash us. So I'm just devastated, and I'm hoping and praying that something is going to happen to turn this around. Because Fulton Industrial doesn't want to be annexed. No matter what carrot is taken over there, they don't want it. And many of us don't want to be annexed. So I just wanted to vent a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not that nobody's listening or trying to.
I'm trying to help you up with the General Assembly. There has been legislation passed to try to look at islands and deannexation. but it's much harder to get a bill passed than it is to kill it. I will commend my colleagues at the Georgia Municipal Association. Anytime any of this legislation is brought up, they're quite apt at getting the other cities around the state involved, and you mentioned the power of Atlanta. Unfortunately, if you're working from my perspective with the counties, there's just not enough counties of which this has become the issue pushed to the forefront as it has here. I mean, it's a huge issue here, but if we take it statewide, we're dealing with a whole array of powerful interests. They make the decisions, and that's just how it is at the state level. These efforts have all been tried. They haven't all succeeded. We've, from the county perspective, we made certain headway, but we're dealing with very formidable opposition, of which is very organized, as are the cities, and they make very valid points. Y'all are just happen to, and annexation is a great thing. I mean, people want to be in city often, but when it gets controversial and you need to tweak the law, battle lines are drawn, it does happen, and it's hard to get something passed. I don't want you to think that they're not trying, because they are. We are. It's just hard to get a bill passed.
All right, so we'll go ahead and switch gears.